Alrighty, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for managing the MongoDB. My name is Tracy Marks, and I'm going to take us through this journey today through a MongoDB instance on our Alteryx server here at Data Meeting. We're going to show you how to do. Well, let's just go through the slideshow. My name is Tracy Marks, Alteryx A7, working with Alteryx for the better part of 8 years now. So I've done it at a lot of different levels, and I'm fairly competent when it comes to the server and things of that nature. So I was excited when I got the opportunity to talk to everybody today. Our agenda, real quick, we are going to talk about the architecture of the server, where it fits in like the whole Alteryx stack. We're going to talk about the Mongo database with Alteryx Server, what its relationship is, what it's doing. We're going to talk a little bit about the schema there. And then we are going to show some examples of connecting through Robo 3T as well as connecting through Alteryx on an actual live instance. Alteryx Server architecture. So this is an example of a single node environment. Everything here represents the Alteryx Server. We have Designer clients, which is how you publish to Alteryx Server, and then the web browser, which is how you access the gallery. The three main parts of the Alteryx Server are the gallery, the controller, and then workers. So you think of gallery, which is the front end of how we log in and access the gallery, the controller, which is the part that actually controls what jobs are happening where, and then the worker, which is what's doing that work for us. The database is another very important part, which is again what we're going to talk about today. The controller interacts with the database to pull job information, pull schedule information, all that stuff. And that's the MongoDB. MongoDB is the only version of the database allowed within Alteryx server as it stands. You can do the embedded MongoDB, as well as if you want to do your own managed MongoDB and then install Alteryx server onto that, that's an option for you as well. Most that I've seen use the embedded MongoDB because it's already set up, and then they can manage that separately. What it does is it serves as your persistence layer. So the persistence layer is the storage layer of artifacts within the Alteryx server. It stores workflows, it stores application files, the queue of those jobs. So if you're scheduling things, it has the job queue, results data, gallery data, scheduled jobs, which is, sorry, same thing as the job queue. It also holds like older versions of things. So if you have a workflow and you publish it, then you republish a version 2 of it. It has the old version as well as the new version. It holds for you the history of your whole Alteryx server. MongoDB, we can either do the embedded, which I had mentioned just a second ago, which is the out-of-the-box installation, and then there's a user-managed one. So if you have a MongoDB team at your organization, you can leverage an existing MongoDB for the Alteryx server portion. There's 3 schemas within the Alteryx. There's Alteryx Gallery, Lucene, and Alteryx Service. Alteryx Gallery, the database for the gallery part of the server instance. So this has things like users, jobs, queues, all that stuff exists within the Alteryx Gallery. So if we want to build a report that's like how many collections exist within our Alteryx Gallery and who has access to them, we would build off the Alteryx Gallery schema. If we want to, this is search information. I have found this incredibly useful, but if you do want to see what people are searching, whatever, that's available to you here in the Lucene schema. And then the Alteryx service schema, which has the service layer, which is going to talk about results and things like that of previously run jobs. So like, let's say we want to build a report that's like who are running the jobs that are taking the longest. We go into the Alteryx service schema to check that out. This is the gallery schema. So we see things in here like collections, credentials. So if you're creating credentials on your gallery, districts, if you're utilizing districts, if you're utilizing insight, media and pages, things like that, subscriptions. So if you're familiar with the admin section of your Alteryx Gallery. A lot of things that you can set up there are going to be seen here, but also again like users, versions, tags, all that stuff. Collections, again, data about collections. So these are some examples of things you're going to see in there. Configurations are your gallery configuration settings. Schedule forecasts. So this is like the future look of the scheduled jobs you have on your Alteryx server, and then information about your users. Then we have the Alteryx service schema, which has the queue, which is important, results, schedules, etc. So again, like what's actually happening, the jobs that are running, the actual like the engine of the Alteryx server. Again, here's some examples. Queues, so these are your queue jobs, like things that are completed and currently waiting. Resources, so info about data connections, results, which are workflow results, result files, which is if you have, sorry, the results, I believe is like when it finished, like information about the finish, and the results files, if there are any files that are pushed out. They are stored here for a limited amount of time. And then schedules, which is just the service layer information regarding schedules. If you're familiar with the Alteryx system settings, everything you're going to need to know to connect to your instance of Mongo, excuse me, sorry, exists here. So if you go to your controller and your persistence layer, this section right here is everything you need to know about your Mongo. If we're looking for a host on the machine, if you're running it from the Alteryx Gallery, the machine that the Alteryx Gallery is, the persistence layer is installed on, you're going to navigate it by going to localhost, and then this is the port number 27018. If you're going to navigate there from your local machine, you're going to want to make sure you put your server address here and then the port number. Username is always going to be user, and then you're going to be required to use the password. You're going to want to use this password below. There are options for advanced connection strings. So like if you want to, if you have other options for like connecting to your Mongo, like let's say you have a user managed Mongo, or your organization is managing a Mongo, and you have to do TLS connections, or your I'm sorry, connected to MongoDB Atlas, which is like a cloud version of Mongo. There are ways to connect, and then there's some documentation here. Connecting from Robo 3T. So Robo 3T is an application. It's free. You can download it. You can install it on that machine. It looks like this. We make some quick connections here with some of that information I showed you earlier. You know, we see the address is localhost 27018. Again, that is if you're connecting on the machine that the Mongo is installed to. And then there's some information about your authentication. We have to tell it what database, so referencing either Alteryx Gallery, Lucene, or Alteryx Service. You're going to add that here to this database section. And your user, again, is always going to be user, and the password is the password we showed you earlier. Once we know we've connected, it's going to look like this. So it's going to say boom, boom, green check mark on both thing. Yep, we've connected to the machine. Yep, you're okay on that database as the user. From there, what you can do is you can save your connections too. So if you want to set up your connection to Gallery and then just connect, save your connection to service, that'll all persist there for a quick and easy connection on the next go around. Once you're in Robo 3T, it looks like this. It's super easy to navigate. So on the left here, you're going to see all your different collections. Collections being different from when we think of collections from an Alteryx server perspective, you know, we have the collections, which is where we put all of our like our workflows to share. Collections in this instance mean like all of the tables that exist for us. I'm sorry, yeah, all of the tables that exist. So like, for example, the collections table or the configuration table. We think of tables, like if you're familiar with like a SQL Server or something like that, we think of these as tables, but they're called collections within MongoDB. Then you have your query pane. right here. So like if you want to search for a specific record, you could do that using this section up here. Google is your best friend on these on the syntax here. So you can just Google like Mongo query syntax, and it'll help guide you through all of that. And then you see your results of that search down here. To get you started, I believe you can right click on these and you could say show example records or something like that. And we'll go through that here in a second. But there is a way to quickly navigate into this so that you can see what's happening within or some examples, so you can kind of like start poking through and like, okay, what am I seeing here when I look at collections? Super easy to navigate here in Robo 3.2. Yeah, sorry. So these are the collections. This is the query section, and these are the objects that we get as a return from the results of this query. You can because this is JSON formatted data and not like traditional tabular formatted data, you actually have like embedded elements within something. So we look at this object, which is a collection. I'm sorry. And there are apps with inside of that, and then this one has like 3 more fields. So you're gonna have to dig down sometimes to find information. It's all the information isn't exactly lined up like a traditional like again, it's not tabular. It has to parse through this, and it does it really well, but you just have to start thinking of things differently. If we're connecting from Alteryx has an out-of-the-box tool, which is a connect to MongoDB tool. It's connected similarly, so you put in their server information. Again, if you're on the machine, we're going to do localhost port 27018, and then we're going to do a username and password. And then here's where we connect to that database, like I had mentioned earlier. So we say Alteryx service here, and then once you put that in, it will populate the collections for you to select, and you select one. And then the Alteryx tool will actually pull that down and do some parsing. You have to give it a record limit. I haven't seen the upper bounds of those record limits, but I've looked for as many as 100,000 records in a single pull, and there weren't any problems. So this is what the MongoDB input tool looks like. It's in your connectors, or should be in your connectors section of Alteryx, and we'll go through that here in a second. So what we're going to do today is we're going to run through 3 separate exercises. I'm going to connect first through Robo 3T so you can see how that works, and we're going to dive into a little bit. But then we're going to use Alteryx Connect to the Alteryx service layer to find the number of active and inactive scheduled workflows. Then in exercise 2, we're going to connect Alteryx to the MongoDB to specifically the Alteryx Gallery, and we're going to find the number of apps, schedules, user groups, and users for each collection. And then we're going to review our results of these things against my gallery to make sure everything looks right. And then we're going to calculate the amount of time spent in each queue, and then we're going to figure out the users that have the top 10 longest running workflows. This is going to be cool for us because this is where you're actually going to see us having to go between 2 separate tables on the Alteryx gallery. So let me get that up and running, and I'll be back with you in just a second. All right, so if everybody, oh goodness, sorry, Designer's going to take a second to load up. All right, that's loaded on my other screen, so we'll just leave it there. This is Robo 3T. It's this little robot guy here. I'm already connected up, but I'm going to show you real quick how we connect if we want to connect to a new one. So we go to a new connection. Oh, I'm sorry, manage connection. We click create, edit, remove, clone. So if you want to change anything here, we can say create. And then if we want to do our connection, we say localhost 27018. Authentication, we're going to do perform authentication, and we're going to change this to user. Oops. And then I have to go to my system settings. So I already have that up here. We go down to our persistence layer, and we're going to grab this password. I'm going to move this over so you don't see that. The little I next to it will allow you to see the password, and I can, oh, I'm sorry, this is not, and I can put the password here. Note the username is actually user, sorry. The database is going to be, we've already connected to Alteryx Service. We're going to connect to Alteryx Gallery. I believe capitalization is important here. So A, capital G, no spaces. If you don't put this in correctly, it will fail. So we say test. We have connected successfully to that instance, and then saying that we're good on the Alteryx Gallery user. So we say close, we say save. Now I have two different connections. Notice the names of the connections are going to be here, Alteryx Service and Alteryx Gallery. So I say okay. So so I've got two connections up. I've got one to Service and one to Gallery. So let's think real quick about these exercises that we're going to do. We're going to say we want to connect Alteryx. We're going to do this in Alteryx. I'm going to show you real quickly how to do it in Robo 3T. We want to find the number of active and inactive scheduled workflows. So we connect Alteryx to the MongoDB, but we're doing it here. So we're going to look into Alteryx Service, and we look under collections, and we want to see our schedules. So if I right click, so I said, so this, if you click on view documents, that's how you get to this, like list of objects within it, similar to like a select top 1000 from the server. And we expand here, and we start to see objects here. Notice it says object ID, and then it's got the number. Mongo holds their keys like this, so it'll say object ID. So this is the whole name. This isn't some formatting for Robo 3T. This is just the way it's actually stored. And then you've got this key in here. So if we want to join later, you will, like other databases might just have this 5F861. So we might have to do some parsing in order to do joins. We see some information about our application. So which application the schedule is assigned to, the username. So what user has put together this this scheduled job, which this is going to be important for us later. Then we have things like creation type, creation date, time, next runtime, and status. To note, I know this because I've been doing this for a while, but in order to figure out if a scheduled job is active or inactive, active scheduled jobs have a next run date or time. So this one would be considered inactive, where if we find one, let's get a newer one, where there's the next run date and time, this is going to be considered like an active record. So we can start seeing things here in MongoDB, or we can start at least diving into our data. This tool right here is a lot easier to kind of dive through your data, similar to like an SSRS would be, or an SSMS would be for SQL Server, right? Because this tool is built to kind of dive through the data. So if we wanted to, really quickly say, oh, I need to find this username, I could come over to the gallery connections, and I go to collections, and I can go down to users, or users here, and I can copy this code, this value here. To note, you do need to be, I should have probably said this at the beginning, you do need to be careful when you're in here, because if I delete this document, this is going to mess things up on my server. So we don't want to be deleting anything or adjusting any of the data here. This tool we want to use very specifically to kind of just look through things. So again, just be very aware of what's actually happening as you click and press on things. But we're going to go to edit document. Let's just say view document. I can't change it if I just click on view. I seem to be having some issues with the way this looks. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time copying and pasting. I think. What does that look like? That copied everything. It doesn't look like it's copying everything, but that did copy everything. So if I wanted to, grab that application ID, or actually let's do the username. I'm dropping everything on a text editor because it'll be easier for me to like grab it. I can grab this here, and I can go over to my users and I can say find, and I can say, oh, I want to find object ID, and it's going to do some text or some input for us, and then I drop this code in here, or not the code, I'm sorry, this key in here, and I make sure I want to close my my brackets, and then I run. So let's run. Run. Unexpected string. Let's see. Find object ID. Yeah, sorry. So again, Google's going to be your friend on this. I'm not sure what this error is necessarily, but you should be able to like grab. Oh, I'm sorry, I probably got it wrong. Yeah, you're going to be able to grab these different keys here and navigate through it using Mongo. Next, we're going to look at things over in Alteryx. Where's my... Sorry, it's freezing up on me. Give me one moment. We're going to be using the Alteryx. Sorry, let me take a look at questions we may have. No questions thus far. Questions. Okay, sorry, I'm getting some questions here saying cleaning up stuff in the gallery. We want things that haven't run since July 2021. Yes, we can kind of look at that here on the end. That's absolutely something we can do. Is there a way to determine how frequently the job is running? Yes, we can look at that as well, Alex. So hopefully we'll be able to answer this, or at least show you how to answer these questions in the in our demos here. So first one, we said we want to connect to the MongoDB Alteryx service to find the number of active and inactive scheduled workflows. So to do that, we go to our connectors group, and we see this MongoDB input. We are connecting the same way that we connected into Alteryx, and I'm sorry, into the MongoDB here, where we say the server is going to be localhost, or I'm sorry, no. Yeah, localhost 27018. The username is going to be user, and then I'm going to get the password from my system settings. Remember, we want to be using the password, not the admin password. And then I drop it here. The database is going to be Alteryx service. I have typed this in manually, which is fine. And then once I click on here, it brings up all of the available. As long as all of this is filled in correctly, it's going to bring in all the available collections to us. So we want to look at schedules. And then I have to put a record limit in here, so we're just going to say 1,000. That's a pretty standard number. And then if we want to add criteria, we can do that down here. We're going to just kind of show you what this looks like out of this. For whatever reason, this is giving me this error. It runs fine, but it's like not accepting this. So we're just going to run. Runs fine. I get data out of here. And because I don't necessarily want to keep hitting my Mongo database, I can cache this. So we use the caching run workflow. And now we're going to work off of these results. So remember earlier we talked about this next run date or time. If it is null, then we do not have, it would be considered active, or if there, sorry, not null. If there isn't a date, then we would consider it inactive. If there is a date, we would consider it active. So how do we do that? I mean, I assume a lot of folks here are fairly familiar with Alteryx and the way, you know, we would do formulas like this. So we would do something like a formula tool, and we would drop it here, and we'd put some requirement that's like, okay, like call it active status, and then say if is empty, next run date time, then inactive else. So we have our status here, active or inactive, again, based on if there is a next run date and time here. And then we just really quickly do a transform tool, and we group this one. We add a group by, and then we do a count. So we can just say at the end of this, we know that we have 26 inactive scheduled jobs and then 32 active scheduled jobs. This can be confirmed by going to our gallery. So let's do that real quick. I go to localhost/gallery, and then we're going to go look at our, and I might have to manually count this, which is fine because I only have 50 or so. So we go to admin, and I go to my, where are my jobs. And I look at all my scheduled workflows. Oh. And then I could go through here and count and just figure out like who has a next runtime. And we'll be good to go from there. Or we look at active versus complete or disabled. And then we would count these and make sure that we have all the same times. But that's essentially how you would check against my results. So we have our active and inactive. Again, so let's just kind of also talk about, I believe one of the questions was, in order to clean up stuff, check workflows. So this is workflows that haven't run, a job is running. So Alex had asked, is there a way to determine how frequently the job is running? There's two ways to do this. So if you want to look at scheduled, like how often it's scheduled, you do it this way, and then we'd link it back to a, let's see, we'd link it back to, where is it? Sorry. So this is schedules. We link it back to a, where did it go? Sorry. An app, I believe they're workflow. Where's the workflows? Sorry, I'm trying to remember what they're called here. They're called application. Sorry. So you would just expand on this and try to find your applications that are run there. But if you're also just looking for results, you can look at the results of all the jobs that have run, and then you could tie that back to the results drop. Sorry, there's layers to this. So you have to look at you look at the results, then you can go back to the queue and then figure out which workflow the queue is. This is kind of, if you think about it like a star schema, we're going to have to go figure this out, then we have to figure this out, and then you can tie that back to the application so you can understand what applications are running a lot. And we can, if we have time at the end, maybe we can kind of start down that path, but that's how you would answer that, Alex. A couple workflows that didn't run. And then Tiago, you have a question, check the workflows that didn't run since July 2021. You do that in a similar manner. So you go at the queue and the results of the queue, and then you would back into like the run date, and then you get back to the application. And so you could pull applications, and then you would do like the last run date. You would have to do this both here and in Alteryx, but you would just calculate like the last run date of every application, and then you could just say these applications haven't run since July of 2021. Merlene asked if Robo 3T is free. I believe it is. It's if you look it up on Google, there's another application that it's tied to now. It's no longer called Robo 3T, but Robo 3T does install. You'll have to Google it. I apologize, I don't have that at my fingertips, but yes, you should be able to install it for free. At least download it for free from Google. And then there's might be like a registration they have to use, like you have to register a username, but otherwise that should take care of that. Oh yeah, sorry. Now it's called Studio 3T Free, and it looks a little different, but it's essentially the same product. So this is the answering the first exercise we have now. The second exercise we asked is we wanted to connect the Alteryx to the MongoDB Alteryx Gallery. We want to find the number of apps, schedules, user groups, and users for each collection. This is a little bit bigger of a question to answer because of how this is formatted. So let's bring in, I'm actually just going to copy this one and paste because I don't want to bring in my password over and over again because that's annoying. We would just, instead of get service, we're going to point this back to gallery. I have to click out over here because it's going to refresh the collections. This is the one I was looking at is missing, which we know to be true because I am no longer looking at that one. And we want to look at, sorry, what was the question? Number of apps, schedules, user groups for each collection. So we want to look at collection information. So if we go up here to collections, and then I have to actually expand this to, I believe 1,000 worked. Sorry, when I just want to check here. Yeah, my limit of 1,000 is fine because I don't have 1,000 collections. We're going to get rid of this. I'm going to cache this because this is quite large. The collections table, the way it comes out of this Mongo tool is really kind of interesting. What happens is it's only got 36 records, but I've got 377 fields. Because as we add users, permission, apps, and things like that, instead of, for whatever reason, how this tool parses this, instead of creating new records, it just makes a very wide set of data. And like, this is only a scheduled information about one specific schedule. Same for here. Or as you add more schedules, add more versions of the workflow, it's going to expand that. So we have to make some adjustments to this data in order to make it useful. We're going to start off by doing a transpose. And in that transpose, we're going to group on the collection. These are our key fields. So collection ID, name, owner ID, and date added. And then the rest of these, we're going to just shift and make it really tall instead of really wide. This will also give us a better idea of what we're seeing here. So we see users, apps, insights, users, user groups, subscriptions. We're seeing all these different things within a collection. And now we're starting to like understand that, okay, so maybe this data, this is how we're going to figure this out because like I have, you know, these, so it has the description of what it is, and then it has an identifier. So like this is app number 42, and this is the information around app 42. These don't have records here, or these are all null values, because remember how I showed you it was expanded. What we can do real quick is just remove all of the null, everything where there's a null value here, because they're not important to us. So where's the value is null. I'm sorry, I want to see where it is not null. And now all of this information is a lot more valuable to us, right? So I've got users. The first user here is Connor Smith, data meeting / Connor Smith, and then this is his SID, which is attached to our Active Directory. If you're using Active Directory, this will be populated, and then it has a bunch of information about that user. So users. So this is their Active Directory information. This is their permission information. This is Active Directory object, which means like if you're part of like an AD group, that information is going to be here. And then it has your permissions at the asset level, at the collection level, at the user level. And then, yeah, so that's all the information you need about that user. We're just doing a count So if you need to understand and harvest this information at a lower level, you're going to have to continue to parse out this name field and grab that. We don't for this example, but we do have to do a little bit of text to column parsing. I believe, only want 3 fields out of that. So yeah, so we want the sorry, we want the category, which is this first little section here. We have the ID, which is, we want it to be its own column, and then we have essentially this information, like what is this? We want this to be our 3rd column. So we're going to split that to 3 columns. I'm sorry, we're going to split the name to field to 3 columns. We're going to split on our delimiter, which is a period, and then output root name. We'll just call this, instead of leaving it as name2, we'll just do we'll just call it info, because I like to call it that. So now we have 3 columns here. We have our users. So again, we want to find information about users. We want to find information. The question was specifically, we want to find the number of apps, schedules, user groups, and users on each collection. Note here, there is a collection from the original data set. There's this collection ID, which was unique to every record. But when we expanded it this way, we now have a duplication of the collection. So we know that we can group information here by collection ID. So once I parse this, and I now have my 3 sets of 3 fields, I've got my users. So again, we're going to want user info. This is the user ID of the like return. So this is only important here in the way that the JSON return. Like, you can't reference this back to the Mongo database for anything. You would actually need to grab something like their user ID. Where's their user ID? Display name. For this user, it looks like you probably actually have to refer back to them by their by like their email or their name. We'd have to dive into this a little bit further if we want to figure out what in this we can refer back to on, but all that information is returned to us here. Then what we're going to do is we want to remember, we're only looking at apps, schedule, user groups, and users. That I also have things like insights. I don't care about insights, so we're going to get rid of that. Users, user groups, I want that. Subscriptions, I don't really care about that. Let's see what else we have here. I think those are the only things we don't care about, but I do know what I do care about. So we're going to put another filter here. And I only want the records from info1, and we're going to create an in apps, schedules, user groups, and then users. So I want to pull these records out. And so what I've gotten rid of insights and subscriptions. Not a ton of records, but not a ton of records for my Alteryx server, but your Alteryx server may have a lot more records in there. We can, if we want to, from here, we might want to do some sorting to kind of figure out what we have going on. So I can do, we can add a sort tool to like understand. So let's say we want to have, like right now, it looks like it's in an order that might make sense to us, but just as a reminder, right, we can play around with tools like this to see, other ways that our data might look, figure out how we could use this. Now, like we're seeing apps by ID. So we're seeing like the different fields that we're seeing, apps added by application ID, So none of this is maybe necessarily super helpful to us in this view, but again, Alteryx is great for helping us dive through. I'm sorry. My allergies are really tough right now, so I just need to make sure I'm drinking water. Yeah, sorry, Alteryx allows us to, kind of manipulate the data and see what's valuable to us. So we're going to bring a summarize tool in here because it looks like this collection ID here, or I'm sorry, this info2 field here, like this looks to be where, each one of these is like a unique user and a unique user group. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to group on this collection ID, and I'm going to group again on our info one field, so on these groups that we're looking for, and then I'm going to count the distinct IDs here. So let's see what those results look like for us. It looks like this collection here, it has 6 users, 2 user groups, 1 app, 1 schedule. And then we can do something like a cross tab to make sure that we've got this cleaned up and looking nice. So we say collection ID, info2 is our new field. This is our new, info1 is our new header value. Info2 is the values that exist within the data, and then I can sum it here. We won't get, these are all unique to this, so there won't be any need to sum it, but Alteryx requests that we do, so we can pivot it now, and I see that we have these different collections. Actually, sorry, I want to also group on the names. Group by oh shoot, why didn't that come through? Oh, sorry, I need to bring this in here as well. And then yeah, so now we see here. So if I want to check like the results here, if I want to go into like the strategic enablement collection, I can go to collections. I can look at strategic enablement. Where are we here? So I see strategic enablement. I have 3 workflows, 3 schedules. Let's see, 3 schedules, 3 apps, which is a workflow. No user groups and 11 users. No user groups and 11 users. So this information that exists to us here in our collections are now at our fingertips using these tools in Alteryx. And we are actually kind of running up on time here, so I'm going to really quickly run through this next one, which I've already built. We're just going to copy and paste it in here because I do want to make sure we have time for QA. I'm going to show you how we did this. So we have 2 different connections here. We have connection to Alteryx service. We're looking at the question is calculate how much time each workflow is spent in queue. And then we want to get the users that have the top 10 longest running workflows. Let me run this real quick. So we have 2 connections here. One is to the actual queues. Oh, this one's long. I'm sorry. This one's actually queue. Queue will be a giant database for you, especially if you have a lot of different workflows in here. So I'm pulling 75,000 records. It takes 10 seconds to do it. I put a limit of 100,000 here. You're going to probably be testing the upper bounds if you have years and years of workflows that are run. So just be prepared for that. Here, what I see is we see information about this is the ID. Okay, note here. I make sure to, this isn't automatically selected, but in this, we're going to make sure we want to bring in the Mongo ID field. So this is the ID for the queue. Like this specific queue has this ID. This is the application that was attached to it. We have things like username, so we're going to need this for users later. Creation date, completion date, priority. So if you do run this query, you may want to remove these quality of service priority 6s, because this is attached to specifically when you're doing validation on publication. So these aren't really valuable to us here. I didn't remove them because it doesn't matter. But if you're trying to do, like, if you want to see when jobs are running in a schedule or whether they're running manually or whatever, you will probably want to remove these to get as few records as possible. Then we calculate the runtime, and the runtime is just the different seconds between the completion date time and the creation date time. Then we descend. We're going to find the first 10. So this gives us like the 10 workflows that ran the longest. So we've got these 3 new workflows here, and then a bunch of other things that we do. And then what we've done is we also brought in the users. So this is connecting Alteryx Gallery to Alteryx Service, Alteryx Gallery. And then we are bringing, again, so this is where we have to make sure we bring in the MongoID field, because it's not brought in unless you select that. So this MongoID field is the ID for each of these users. Note there are a ton of fields in this. This is where things, begin to expand based on notifications and messages and things of that nature. So this can be really wide for you. I get rid of all of that really quickly. I only want these 4 fields here. Then we're going to do an expression, a regex, to pull out this this ID here. If you're unfamiliar with regular expressions, check out regex 101. It's a really good way to learn and actually kind of build some of these queries out. Some of these expressions out. And then what I do is I'm grabbing all the word characters that come after quotation mark and then before the quotation mark, because that's not a word character, and we are pulling them out here to user ID. And then we are joining username, because this is called username here, to the user ID here, and we get the results as such. Using the join tool, like a select tool, to get rid of most of that, because I don't need most of that information. I can see that in our results that Caesar owns these top 3 workflows that take the longest, and then I can go down from there, and now we see which users are taking the longest on their runtimes. And so those are the 3 use cases. I'm sure I have some questions now. We're going to leave the rest of the hour open for questions. Let's see. Tiago, we might, before I dive into Tiago's question, Tiago was the one who asked, in order to clean up some stuff on the gallery, want to check all the workflows that didn't run since July 2021, for instance. How can I locate that information? We'll look at that in just a second. Hopefully I can do that in the time that we have here. And then frequently a job is running. That would be kind of the same. So Alex, the same kind of process we did here. We connect to our ASQ database, and then you would want to group on application ID, and then application ID, and then maybe you want to check by status. Some of these, this, if it ended in error, it might not make sense to you, but you can use this to filter your results. And then again, you'd have to attach this application ID to AS applications if you actually want to find the name of the application, the owner, and stuff like that. So hopefully that answers that question. Neil Hauser asked, the name of the free MongoDB, it's called Studio 3T. It is now called, if you want to Google it, you should be able to find it with Studio 3T. But there is another one. I'm sorry. Studio 3T is the free version. Studio 3T free. I was using Robo 3T. There's another one called Mongo Compass. If you can't get those to work, or you don't want to for whatever reason, use that one. They all work very similarly, and they have a very similar like aesthetic to this. Mongo Compass has some things that work better, but this is definitely easier to use and to show off. So that's why we do Robo 3T. You're welcome. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can do this question from Tiago real quick in order to okay. So if we wanted to check workflows that didn't run since July 2021, we would look at the queue here. Let me just copy this. And then we would say something like, let's do a transform where we summarize, where we say the application ID we're going to group here, and then the creation date time we're going to say the max creation date time. So we run this. How do I identify if a job is stuck? That's a good question. Give me just a moment. It's likely going to be in this queue table here. So you here have all the applications here, then you have the max creation date time, which means like the last time a queued object was created. So if we look here, I've got some that the last time it was queued up was last June. Then you just put something like a filter, like a date filter on the max creation date time is greater than or equal to, comes after 20-2-1-1. You may actually have to change this to a date time. This is going to be date time. Then let's cache this here so I don't have to worry about Mongo. This actually filter might fail because I did it as a string first. Yeah, okay, yeah, so we see here that like these are all the jobs that the last time it was run was before, what did I put? January 1st of 2021. You do essentially the same thing for July 2021, Tiago. Let's see, how do I identify if a job is stuck? Let's take a look. I actually don't know the answer to that one, but hopefully we can find it using this information here. So probably the status, I would guess you can look at this status, and then you would just look at the runtime. So the status would probably be queued or running if the job is running currently or waiting to run currently. And then you would just calculate the difference between the creation time and now, because the completion date should be blank and the creation date should be in the past. You could probably even build a workflow that checks like the average runtime and say like, oh, we're over 10% of the average runtime, or we're over, whatever percent of the average runtime. Yeah, maybe you can build a workflow that does that to check for stuck jobs in the future, but you would use probably this queues table. All right, we have 2 minutes left. If we have any more questions, speak now. We can also send out an email later to us, and we can try to help answer questions that way. Recap, Robo 3T is great. Mongo Compass, Mongo Studio 3T, free version are all great ways to get into it. In order to connect, you need to have the information from your system settings. We have, your user. You need so you need to have your localhost information. This port is important because you'll see a lot of times like if you look up questions about related to Mongo, it'll often report 27017, which I think is the default for non-Alteryx Mongo. So you just make sure that you're always using the port 18. And then the password here is the password that you need. This is in your system setting and persistence. And again, localhost only works from if you're on the machine that the Mongo is stored. Otherwise, you need to put the address of the server here instead. Don't delete anything from here. That's if the most important thing is don't delete anything from here. We had to research when a job was stuck. Oh, Neil, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so you could probably build a workflow or build something that problem if you want to build a workflow, then you put that into the queue, and if a job's stuck, then you can probably build run something locally. Or for you, probably what would be good is if you connected to this from your local machine, and then you just like run it every morning or run in the evening, whatever that looks like. So we are at time. I want to thank everybody for coming today. Let's see. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and have a great rest of your day. And I'll be your teacher next week as well, so we'll see you next week. And have a great day. Bye.